Hey guys, it's Will. Hopefully you're having a great Friday. We focus on the most innovative stocks in the world, from quantum computing to AI and data centers to space tech and even a little bit of AI defense. And I can tell you guys that when focusing on these stocks, there's going to be volatility. And we've seen some of the biggest dips recently in quantum. So quantum has had 2 days in a row with significant dips, especially over here on Rigetti stock. I was just taking a look at what we had mapped out. We had this overall trend. Now, this is small volatility compared to what we have seen in the past. We even saw Rigetti dip as much as 40 or 50% after NVIDIA announcements that they were saying quantum computing is 15 to 30 years away. But after, NVIDIA introduces actually quantum programs and things start to look more bullish, then the stock recovered. We start to see it recover. And recently, we've been watching it closely, not just Rigetti, but IonQ, or we could take a look at QBTS, even LAES over there. And recently, we started to see it start this uptrend. It was uptrending really since April. So after that crash in January, it was consolidating for a few months. And then in April, consistently uptrending through April into May. Then we saw this big surge, which we were able to trade. We made a nice sum on Rigetti, buying right around here at around $10. And we had a trade earlier this month, halfway through May. It was about a $1,200 trade in a matter of days. And we also were watching it very closely in StockMate. So in our daily live trading, if you guys ever want to be there, it's that second link down in the description. We go live each morning at market open, and we were talking about how this trend was at a resistance. There was a high probability of rejection and a lower probability, but still possibility of maybe a hyper bullish trend. But the rejection was more than likely because of their financials and what's been showing up for the company fundamentally. So you start to see this trend again. It was just a couple weeks in a row of just bullish momentum, found this breakout above the resistance and got rejected, and that's exactly what happened. So it pulled back down to this rising support here. And so now we start to see it back into its trend of where it was before this week. And now we're saying, okay, does it hold? Does it continue this swing upwards? When it comes to Rigetti stock, I think that there's a lot more likelihood that we could see Rigetti in particular do well and possibly make this recovery. But the overall quantum market has some bearish momentum, and I'll show you kind of what that looks like. QBTS has been selling off, but recently had a little bit of a recovery after hours after reaching all-time highs. So Rigetti starting to make its run and then selling off, QBTS selling off, and then IonQ reaching those highs at 48.99 and then selling off recently down to this previous resistance. It's just kind of the same pattern in all of quantum. We saw this big rally, things were looking good, and then right when they start to look almost euphoric, we see a correction. Now, this correction possibly could be the temporary correction, but when we look at the next indicator for the quantum market, which the market's growing, we see more investments from big tech. But the thing that's not growing is their net income and their profits. We could actually, bear with me because I have a new browser. I'm testing out a new browser now. But we're going to go ahead and search Rigetti stock. Let's see. Is it working? There we go. So on their site, they've looked really innovative. They have their AWS, the Microsoft distribution. They're coming out with new contracts. They got that millions of dollars in contracts for DARPA. And that's all nice and cool. But then you look at RGTI stock, and we're going to get a better look at their financials. And they came in actually with their best net income that they've ever come in at. So plus $42 million in net income. Revenue there is still down, but you see their contracts and grants kicking in, giving them that positive net income. So while they had a positive net income and that looks kind of good, they still missed revenue by about 40%. Earnings per share is down, and their financials, if they're losing money or if they're around even at $0 or a couple million, what that means for their financials is that they have an overvalue in their market cap. So I could see Rigetti continuing to sell down a little bit here and maybe even breaking pattern and possibly getting into these lower levels of maybe not $6.50, but it is possible we see that sell off. And am I always right? No, but I do think an overextension kicked in, and now we could see the market balance out until we start to see some of those financials really start to look good. So same thing could be true over here with QBTS. QBTS had its biggest run ever, right? So we saw QBTS surge to about $11 a share back in December, sold off with the rest of Quantum. We went to a Quantum conference and got to meet the executives, even were able to squeeze in a little conversation with the CEO, Alan Barretts, of the company. And they're a multi-billion-dollar company that surged back up to that 1190, sold back down into April after that surge in March, and then made a run to all-time highs up to $19.70. So QBTS now selling back down to this previous resistance that's already pretty high up. You see, even on the RSI, while it's corrected, it's still on the overbought side. It's still looking way overextended. So what could we see? Well, I think the previous resistance could act as a support, as it oftentimes does. But I don't know that it's going to be this hiring resistance that will act as a support. I think it actually would make more sense that we see this resistance at around $11.50 be some of the next targets for QBTS. So as it's maybe going to hold this level, and that would be the hyperbole case, I think what might be more likely, especially looking at its near-term movements, we see it break below the 200-day moving average, right? We see it break below the 200-day moving average, that green line that in a bullish market acts as a support. You can see that. It's acting as a resistance now, so pushing up a little bit there after hours. But if we see a rejection at that 1650, you could just tell it could have this bearish momentum continue. So now we have this new downtrend kicking in with Quantum on the near term. And so while it looks like, oh, maybe we're finding a support there, which there is a support, a previous resistance at around $15.50, there's also this overall top that we're seeing here play out. And so essentially what we're saying is maybe this is going to act as a resistance, and we see it sell down into this, 1350 and get some more recovery, and even see as low as $12.50 in the near term. Now, I know, guys, it's a bearish outlook, and I don't want to be, I want to go back to telling you Quantum is really in a great run, like when we were right here at the supports, and then we started to get this push up here, and not going to lie, we were skeptical as to whether or not it was going to continue to push to all-time highs. It pushed to all-time highs, and now at this point, of course, we could be wrong, and it could continue up. But the same thing could be true here with QBTS. When you look at QBTS in comparison to any of the other quantum stocks, while their marketing is great and their company communication is fairly good compared to most really other companies, they still have this revenue that is most likely seen as temporary revenue from one of the sales they had to the German company over in Jülich. So about a $15 million in revenue, which is up year over year. It looks quite green, but their net income holding negative around negative 5 million. And when you have a negative net income of millions of dollars, to me, that market cap of nearly $5 billion cannot withstand. I mean, look, if you want to invest in it and go continue to be bullish on the quantum market, by all means, all power to you. In fact, you guys know I'm an innovator and someone that literally is working on using this company's technology in our own apps that we use for predictive analysis. So when it comes down to this outlook on D Wave, right? All we have to really look at is long term. Yeah, sure, there could be some potential, but in the near term, with a market cap of 5 billion and a revenue negative or net income negative, the justification that it can hold billions of dollars in valuation to me doesn't seem to make sense. Now, if we started to unwrap the industries and we uncovered that, let's call a tech company Intel, or let's say HP or Apple even, or Microsoft was quietly using some D-Wave quantum to accelerate the processing in some of their computing, then sure, this is a value unwrapped that makes total sense and the revenue is bound to hit right now. But if we're not seeing those big contracts, in fact, some of the contracts that they've gotten haven't really turned into much. Like, we know that they got their contract over there with MasterCard a few years ago and it didn't turn into much. They have released new systems and have partnerships, for example, with Boeing. But at the time of seeing that partnership in person in the conference that we went to, where I got to meet some of the executives, that partnership so far hadn't turned into much. There wasn't any revenues or impacted processes that they had seen take place in Boeing. While companies are watching closely to say, hey, is D-Wave a solution we can use? Is there quantum computing something we're going to use? And you see companies like Anduril or big institutions that are looking to use quantum computers, yeah, they're scouting it out. But as far as big contracts that continue to hit the bottom line, it's been kind of rare, except for that recent sale out to Uleach. Now, they did just announce that they're going to have a new webinar, which is exciting, on their Advantage 2 system that's has powerful capability to solve computationally complex problems in business and science. And we do love their fundamentals of focusing on quantum, innovating, and being one of the companies that focuses on commercial use. But outside of those things, you still have to look at those financials again, and you got to ask yourself, is a company that's, making less than zero per quarter worth $4.7 billion? That's a question. They have under 300 employees. It's kind of unheard of for a company to have that minimal amount of employees and negative revenue or negative net income and still be in the billions of dollars. So for that reason, I would actually be more inclined to be looking at QBTX and possibly even shorting the company, while I love to be looking at the innovation that's happening in the world. I mean, take a look at these swings that are happening on QBTX. Did you know today, or in the past 24 hours, that QBTX at one point sold as low as 33% sell off in the last day and a half? So this stock goes up or down 2% every time QBTS goes up or down 1%. So it's 2x leverage. We've seen some runs take place, and they just recently got introduced to the market. So possibly, if we're going to take some positions to short, I know some of our members, one of our members commented this morning inside of our daily live trading session that they had made $4,000 investing in RGTX, which is a 2x of Rigetti, shorting Rigetti. So they shorted Rigetti. They saw that in the last day, it's gone down about 40% in the RGTX, so about 20% total. And as a result, they made $4,000. So we're going to always be looking at the opportunities, whether it means that we're going in the market when it's going up, or if the market's correcting and it means that we're taking advantage of the semiconductor market selling off. And that means that, for example, today, one of our members was crushing it with SOXS. While the semiconductor market sold off big, SOXS surged. And in the last few days, it's gone up about $3 per share on an $11 price point. So over 25%. So when it comes to Rigetti and even IonQ, we start to see things kick in and things start to look interesting. And I do see that if any company is overextended, or any market seems to be overextended, it would most likely look like the quantum market at the moment. So that and aviation. I think aviation's getting ahead of itself. We've seen some aviation stocks surge when they don't even have their product out, but they're maybe going to have flying cars. We'll get into it later, but excited to cover those. If you guys have any comments on the quantum market and you see that the overextension maybe is overreaching on my side, and you think, no, Will, these are going to continue to rally, by all means, comment why you think that. I think they're great companies, and in the long term, they're one to have in your back pocket. And I personally have long-term positions in almost every company I just mentioned. But when it comes to the near-term trading, we're absolutely looking at playing the downside in a lot of these companies. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. If I earned your thumbs up, hit the like button. Again, if you ever want to join us in the daily live trading, it's the second link in the description for Stockmates. We go live there Monday through Friday. And then on top of that, you get a free Stockmate t-shirt when you join. So I would love to send that out to you wherever you are in the world. It's included when you join Stockmate Lifetime Access. And on top of that, if you missed our weekly training that we did yesterday, it was live on YouTube. I'll leave the link in the first link in the description, where you can get access to our new software for free as a bonus when you join our virtual stock trading system. It's a 6-week kickstart where you get to join our Zooms every week for 6 weeks. And again, it's that first link in the description where you get also Stockmates as a bonus when you enroll, which is huge. A massive real world value of well over $1,000 in the first link in the description. And I would encourage you to simply take a look. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Appreciate you all. Do consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.